Okay, well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. This is the second time around because I didn't hit record. But I want to appreciate everybody for tuning in. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to this page. You are viewing Unscripted Mics. This is a channel or a podcast that people can come in and talk about any kind of topics they really want. I mean, we got investments. We got a guy coming that's going to talk about prison reform. We got hairstylists. We got someone's talking about card server, a private investigator dude. We even have a guy coming in that he does the track. It was a like NASCAR track. He doesn't actually drive with the NASCAR guys, but it's the same thing. He says he's been doing it for 7 years. And I'm like, we got this guy booked on a Saturday evening, so I'm like going, yeah, we're probably get a little crowded up here, but. I want to welcome you, Ever Ramirez. I really appreciate you coming out, and I understand that we're going to talk a little bit about investment, just a little bit, maybe point out what's mutual funds and any other kind of investment. So one thing that I'd like the public to know about is, let's say if someone's just starting out in life, they're just getting married and say, oh yeah, okay, because we talked about this earlier. It was like, okay, whatever the wife says, it's true. Okay,
yeah.
So
just
yes,
listen
ma'am.
to her.
Just listen to her. She's right. And so, but I've been knowing you for many, many, many years. I've known you, matter of fact, before you and Janina.
Yeah, before me and my wife met, actually. Yeah.
Before you and your wife met, and now you got a couple kids, and you're moving to a new home and everything. And
oh man, that's been a process.
Yeah, it is, and you got a freaking great job. And but let's there's no but in there really, but let's talk about investment a little bit. And I understand you can't say everything, but beyond what just the limitations of what you can, like a new couple, a young couple in life starting out, what would you recommend, or what would you say, hey, you know what, this is what you might think about?
And so I appreciate you again, Tommy, for inviting me to come out and talk to your viewers today as well. And as you mentioned, I'm going to do really high level just because everyone's situation is going to be a little bit different, right? My wife and I'd like to say we're still in that newlywed stage, right? Even though we've been together for 10 years, been married for the last 8. We actually just celebrated our anniversary 3 days ago. So we got married.
Good for you.
Thanks.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks. And so that's 8 years that we've been married, and like I said, together for 10. And yeah, Tommy and I we've known each other since before Janina and I met. So that's It's phenomenal. And you've seen the progress, right? You've seen us come along.
It's been a
as
great
well.
ride.
Yeah,
awesome ride.
definitely.
A lot of fun. And I'm wanting a lot more of that too. So I really appreciate y'all moving right down the road. That's awesome.
Yeah. Now we're 15 minutes away from you, so that's phenomenal. So I'm happy about that as well. And my son, so I have 2 kids. And so talking about kind of just the getting started as well, I think it's actually a great place to start. Being that, like as I mentioned, I'd like to say we're still in that newlywed phase because I know so many people that have been married for so many years, and I kind of like to hear their stories as well too. But we have 2 kids. We have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old as well. And so when my wife and I got started, our finances were completely separate. You do your thing, I do mine. That's how we're going to keep it. We're not going to talk about money, and here it is. Mm. And one of the things I've learned over the years, and as I've worked with a lot of different couples along the way, is that one of the things that someone has to kind of take that leadership role in that. Most of the time, everybody working together, it's great. If you're able to work together, that's great. But one of the things that you see a lot in marriages, unfortunately, is that money thing comes up. Mm. And
that's very important.
Yeah.
Besides the yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
But money ranks up there pretty high.
That's right. And so when you start having conflicts about money, it's definitely never a fun conversation to have. And I'm a strong believer that somebody maybe should take that role on, that kind of that leadership role in that, and take the lead in that. And avoid all the troubles, right? Avoid the headache. And so my wife and I eventually kind of came to an agreement that I would take on that leadership role, with that being that I was in finance. And she's a school or was a school teacher now she's an administrator. And yeah, so she said, hey, you take on that role and kind of lead our house down that path. And it's been great. We both have an agreement. We still both look at the finances and kind of really understand what's going on. And so one of the things that I recommend to people is to be really open about money. Don't hide anything. Don't be scared to have that conversation. And if you know that you're more of a spender than the other person, then go ahead and let that person take that role as like, okay, you tell me how much I'm going to spend. I'm going to stay within those means, and you help us get to the next level, right? Visiting with a financial advisor is definitely something that's also helpful. So a financial advisor is going to work as not only that person giving you advice about where to invest your money, but at times also kind of be that marriage counselor as well too, right? And say, okay, guys, look, we need to have a discussion. This is the goal. This is the goal we're trying to get to. Where are you guys trying to accomplish? And then bring both of them in together and have that really, truly honest discussion, and have that unbiased party kind of being there as well to kind of protect that a little bit and handle the emotional pieces behind money as well. So what I would say, anyone that's just getting married, just getting started, maybe go out and visit with a financial advisor, or just have a one-on-one conversation with each other and just say, hey, look, this is what I'm good at. This is what I do. And this is how I can help us get to the next point. But definitely one of the other pieces that I would actually highly recommend, and my wife and I did it as well, is take a look at life insurance as well. And I'm not making a recommendation or anything like that. I just kind of, one of the things that I would really consider, even if it's your employer, make sure to look at that. A lot of times young couples, unfortunately, don't think about those things, right? We never want to think about death.
We were invincible.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Exactly. We're invincible. We're not that way. We're not invincible. You know, we can pass away. And unfortunately, a lot of times, and I'm with my background, that's some of the things that I've had to experience and see. And it's really difficult to have that conversation with someone and say, you know, I'm sorry, but so-and-so just passed and they didn't have any money left over. And now you got to figure out the mortgage, the kids, you got to figure all these things out. And so even tough. Looking at your employer and looking at life insurance is one of the things that I would highly tell people to maybe take a look at as well.
Because, you know, and to touch on that topic is because a lot of people I see in my time in life is that, we as a couple, we go into a apartment or a house. Okay, both of our incomes can afford this. I'm like, okay, so let me ask you, how about if you get laid off at your job and you have one income, can you afford that? Mm-hmm. Like, why don't you think that a little bit more and try to find a place that if something does happen to you, like if you something happens, you get into an accident, hopefully it never happens, but if you get laid off, your job just goes under or something like that, and you only have one income in, you're still able to live in that house. It might not be as comfortable with the two incomes coming in, but you're still able to afford that mortgage, afford that insurance, the groceries, put diapers on your baby and stuff like that. You're not struggling. You're not have to go out to other means and other resources to get that extra income coming back into your house. You know, if it's like any kind of like go to the state, like work what's it called, the unemployment.
Yeah.
It's so you won't have to go to that. Oh yeah, sure, they'll probably give it to you, but still it's a cushion there, so you don't have to rely on someone else. You have you're living within your means.
Right, and that's very difficult to do in this day and age now. It's very, very difficult. Yeah. We want more, right? And we want bigger
exactly.
as well too. And so it's a really hard thing to do, to live within your means now. But I would say that I think that you bring up a great point, is another discussion point. Yeah, you both of you have money now, right? Now,
Sure.
if you're making $1,500, one person, now you're making $3,000 for the month.
Right.
And you're like, oh
That's
yeah, we
right.
can afford that $2,000 mortgage.
Yeah.
Well, think about that. Yes.
Hang on. Woo, let's get
Yeah.
this car. Let's get this car.
Yeah.
We got a 4-wheeler now. We got all.
Exactly.
Hang on.
Exactly. Slow it down a little bit. Slow it
Right.
down a little
That's
bit.
right.
Always have a cush set aside. I think everybody says, have 3 months worth, right? At the bare minimum.
Exactly. Yes.
Bare minimum 3. Really like to see 6 to 8. Some, and depending on the age of the individual, even maybe a year's worth of income as well too. We don't know, especially this is a great example. What's going on today, right? We have COVID. We had the coronavirus come out of nowhere here, and people are laid off.
Yeah.
And
Prime
unfortunately,
example right there.
yeah, and unfortunately, I've unfortunately had to see some people that have not been able to make ends meet, and it's been really difficult as well. And so, heck, the news the other day showed a lady that was living in her car with her teenage son.
It's sad. It's
Yeah.
sad.
And so I'd say that you definitely want to have that cush as well, and then slowly progress. And
Sure.
have multiple buckets of money. And that's where the planning pieces really come in, and having that person taking that leadership role in that, and having multiple buckets of money, having that one bucket that's for today, our today bucket, our rainy day bucket, and our sometime bucket. And that today bucket, that's going to cover all the bills, your monthly expenses, what you need today. But then there's that emergency bucket for that day that you do get laid off, or unfortunately the day that COVID hits, right? And you're furloughed for however many weeks or months. And that's where you start pulling from that bucket.
Sure.
And then lastly, of course, having that sometime bucket.
Okay.
At some time, I'm going to need it. I don't know when, but at some point, I'm going to need those funds.
Right.
It might be 40 years from now when you need those funds, right? And so we're all going to get older. We're not getting any younger. No, what's it, Benjamin Button?
It doesn't go backwards, right? I've seen that movie.
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
It's a good movie. And so it doesn't go the other way. We're always getting a little bit older as well too. So
Well, let me jump back on the topic you were talking about a while ago, and you did mention about someone that's a heavy spender and one not the heavy spender.
yeah, we got Gina here with us too, and she's
So Gina has to talk to herself about going, okay, so I'm the heavy spender, but I'm not the heavy spender, so let's try to figure this out. Who's going to do this?
who's gonna help me, right?
Yeah, so who's going to help me? So in that specific relationship, when you got a heavy spender and a non-heavy spender, so the person that's the not a heavy spender, that is the person, sort of clarify it, that's the person that's going to take control of the finances in the relationship, correct?
Yeah, I would say so, definitely, because that person's going to be able to really kind of bring that back, right, and be able to manage the money a little bit better and say, no, I'm not going to go, I don't need that $1,000 watch, right, or I don't need that $1,000 purse, or I don't need those $1,000 shoes, right, and so... Which I didn't even know there were $1,000 shoes out there until a few years ago. I was like, oh my God, you spend how much on those shoes? You're going to walk on the dirt, right, at some point with those, right?
well, too,
like, you're going to mess those up.
Right? So what that does is it takes that heavy spender and it tells that person, him or her, and it's going to tell that person, it's like, oh, hang on, I just got the reins pulled on me in this relationship. So that's something that the two has to talk about ahead of time, because that is a very important topic. Money is always an issue in a relationship. You got money. Well, believe it or not, here's three major ones, and I don't want to go too deep in this, but money's a big issue. Communication is another, and sex. So those three are a major role in a relationship.
Yeah.
And it's just... we just got to have that foundation, and through communication, one another can have that foundation, especially talking about money, because if that one person takes the lead and the other person says, oh, hang on a second, I just got my hands sort of slapped, I'm not able to spend it now like I used to when I was single, now I'm in a relationship, I got to be able to control myself and say, hey, look, so are you giving any suggestions to that person that's usually, because I've heard people say, okay, well, why don't you take an allowance?
Yeah, yeah, and so so I'm not gonna mention the guy's name, right? Because we don't have rights to use his name or anything. But um, there's someone out there that talks about utilizing cash as you're spending, right? So setting up envelopes with different money for
I've heard
different
about
things.
that, the envelope.
Yeah,
Yes.
and so setting cash aside and utilizing it. There's a study years ago that came out that people actually get like this thrill, like the whatever in your brain says, this was exciting, this was great when you swipe your credit card. Feels good. Then you swipe your debit card. It doesn't feel as good though,
Exactly.
because you know
Exactly.
that the money just left your bank account, right? Your credit card, you don't have to worry about it for the next 30 days. And heck, even then, you can put it off and pay the minimum and then pay a ridiculously high interest
Oh
rate.
yeah.
But then at the lastly is paying in cash.
Sure.
It hurts a little bit more, and it
Exactly.
really hurt when they did this study, that people felt this emotional disconnect out of quickly and felt emotionally bad about letting go of this cash. And so that person that is now being told, hey, you can't spend, right? Well, let's
Yeah.
be reasonable about it, right? Let's not say, hey, you're not going to be able to not spend, right? Let's just talk about it. So
Right.
and so I love my wife, and she comes to me and we have those discussions. And every time I'm going to spend money on something, even if I'm going to go buy a fan for our house, I'm telling her about it.
Sure.
Hey, I'm thinking
Sure.
about buying this fan for the house. It's going to be $100 something. What do you think? Well, it's nice. Yeah. Do we need it? Yeah.
There
I
you go.
still run it by her, even though I'm the person that's taking that lead.
Sure.
And so, have a conversation. If you go to church, have a conversation with your pastor about it. I mean, have a
There we go.
conversation. Definitely one of the things that my wife and I did when we got married was go through marriage counseling before we got married. And the opening those lines of communication is just critical. I mean, you hit the nail right on the head, man.
Right.
Sex, communication, money.
Exactly.
Three important pieces
It
to
is.
to any new relationship. And so I would say that I can't talk about the first one that I mentioned there, and so I won't talk about that one. I got to be PG here about it
Right.
today, right?
It's all good. It's all good, brother. It's all good because I know what's going on.
And so, but for the other ones, man, keeping those lines of communication is open are super critical,
Okay.
right? And so if you don't keep those open, then at any relationship, doesn't matter if it's money or anything else, it's just gonna fall. It's just gonna go away, right?
Exactly.
And so I'd say no. That spender, what I'm telling them, that if they're being just cut off now or they feel cut off, then at that point say, hey, can I maybe get a little bit more, right? Like, hey, I'm finding myself that I'm spending more and more on this. Well, let's have a conversation about it. What are you spending money on? Where do you feel that there's that disconnect as well?
Sure.
And so I know some people that's the case. They're on a budget. The spouse has said, hey, look, here's like $200 a week. That's what you're going to spend every week.
Exactly.
And in reality, this is a very scary thing, but from what I see, and I think that's going to happen. I mean, we're going to have a society that in 10, 20, 30 years from now, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be totally out of money. They're going to be in a bad financial strain if they don't really start saving and start putting money away, right? We got a lot of 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds that haven't saved enough, been spending more than they should. And that retirement age comes up really quick, right? 15 years goes by fast. If you're 50, you got 15 years left.
Yeah.
If you're 40, you got 25 years, and that goes by quick. What I
Really?
realize now, when you have kids, it like zooms by you, and
Okay.
so you really need to save.
We'll get to that spot. Hold on just one second.
Yeah.
My back camera just went off. It lost a signal. Hold on a second. So we're still rolling. That's fine. I can always edit.
Tommy's like, I'm not on. That camera's giving him nothing but issues. It had some color issues going on. It had some noise issues earlier. And now it's got something. Is that? I guess that's what that clip was.
Maybe it's just a battery because I put the other battery in here. It ran fine. Hold on just one second.
Yeah.
Tell him no, I'm not holding it.
No, I will continue to speak.
Yeah. Of course, all this could be edited.
Yeah.
Edited out.
So that's a nice thing. So the last time I did something like this, I was actually live, and so that was a lot harder.
Yeah. You're on Saturday Night Live, man.
Yeah. That's on the bucket list. I want to do that.
You should have one of these squeezy deals on your desk for clients when they're stressed out about their money.
Oh, we have an easy button.
Oh, do you? The easy button?
Yeah, we have the easy button.
Mishka! Mimi! Hey, girl. You coming in here? You're talking about money over here.
I know. I see you on Wayfair there spending.
No, I'm putting things in my favorite folder, is what I'm doing.
Okay.
For later when I have money. Well, like, I have a dog bed, but he needs a new one because it's got a hole in it, so I'm just buying
We'll just roll.
bed, just the cover.
That's rolling. That's rolling. That's rolling. I'll just roll
They-
without the lens. I'll just roll without the
Why isn't the
TV.
Oh, okay.
I'll just roll without the monitor. Ain't a big deal.
Okay.
All right, cool. And I do apologize for that because we were talking about the it was really tough for the person that's a heavy spender to say, hang on a minute, I'm not going to be spending as much, and where are you going to find that balance with that?
Yeah, and so it's just really having that discussion and being able to openly say, hey, I'm spending more, but what are you spending on? Like, is it really a necessity, or is it that we're really just we set the budget way too low, right? Are we spending money on eating out every single day? So it's amazing what people do with, like, when you swipe a debit card, you have no idea what's going on, right?
Sure.
So you mentioned a minute ago, my wife and I just buying a new house and stuff and just moving close, and during that process, I mean, we were very good savers. We put money away, and we never looked at our bank. I never really looked at our bank account statement, right? And so when you're buying a house, FYI, don't move money around a lot between accounts, because that's like I did. And when you do that, they want to see everything. Like, where did it go?
They want to know all about it. Why did you do that?
Yeah. So where did it come from? It's, oh my goodness, it was a pain.
It is.
It's like getting an IRS audit. Like, where'd you go from here to here to here? And
well, briefly, let's talk. And I don't mean to cut you
down.
No,
please.
We got about 10 more minutes left. So let's talk about the envelope situation, or not a situation, but the envelope. What's it called? I guess a process or envelope method.
Yeah.
So basically. Go ahead.
No, so the envelope method. So the envelope method is setting cash aside for every envelope depending on what you're going to be spending on money.
Okay.
Money on. So if you're going to be spending money on groceries, okay, how much do we think we're going to spend on groceries? We're going to spend about $100, $150, $200 a week, depending on your family size, right? Mm-hmm. So setting aside that $200, okay, we're going to put $200 in cash right here for.
So it's going to be an envelope. It's going to have an envelope that says
groceries on it, right?
And
exactly.
you put that money in there, right?
Exactly. And so you have a light bill. Okay, we're going to set aside this much for the light bill, right? And so one of the things that I actually suggest to a lot of individuals, if you're not able to do the cash, because some people just don't like cash, right? But the envelope is a good method. It definitely helps some people. But if it's not for you, or because nowadays we've moved more to a digital stage,
sure,
where we're paying everything online, and even now with COVID, right? You can't pay. It seems like you can't pay anywhere with cash. And so set up a separate account, right? So set up a separate account for your wife as the budget, as like, here you go. This is, or your husband, whoever it is. Mm-hmm. This is your spending money. It's going to go into this account. Mm-hmm. This account's for me. This account's my bills account, right? And so most banks, if you have a direct deposit, they usually waive the fees on the bank accounts as well. And so split it that way, okay? Split it that way. If you do it on a debit card, it's a lot easier to manage. If you're not good with a credit card, go with a debit card, but split up the different accounts. It's it's almost the same thing as the envelope method. The difference is you're taking the cash out of it, right?
Okay.
And so you're leaving it all digital, right? And so keep that method up and keep that going. Once you've done that, one of the things that I didn't want to kind of quickly talk about as well too is just talk about where to put funds afterwards as well too. So make sure to set aside the money that's going to go into the savings. Some of the best advice I got when I was younger was to pay yourself, right? Always pay yourself a little bit too, right? And so set aside money for savings for that rainy day. Set that money aside, put it in the money markets, put it in some type of investment, whether an ETF or a mutual fund, and definitely visit with an advisor of some sort to kind of help you plan that out. But set that money aside, set that emergency money aside. But Now with the digital days, with using everything electronically, if you can't do the cash envelope, set up different accounts for those things.
So something that was a little really crazy, and I'm going to throw it at you. And from what I've never done it before, but this person says, yeah, you know what, it helps us out a pretty good bit because what we do is we take out money off to the side. And so if we have to go to the grocery store, if we have to buy this quick gas or something like that, we'll set it. Being that, you know, this was a while back too, beyond COVID thing. And
prior
beyond,
to COVID, yeah.
So what they did is they took their debit card or credit card, put it in a Ziploc bag, filled it full of water, and put it in a freezer. So basically, they're telling
That's a
themselves,
first.
yeah, that's a first, huh?
Yeah, that's
so
the
it's
first I
crazy.
hear of that,
It's
yeah.
crazy. So, but the thing about it is, where the concept comes in, it makes them think. They're like at a store somewhere or something like that. Hey, I need that. I want that Butcher Block 1000. Pull out. Oh, credit card. So it makes me think. Do I really need that? Do I really need that? Because I got to go home for one. It's not with me. I only got cash. I only carry enough cash for what I really, really, really have to have.
Yeah.
My credit card is in the
Ice.
freezer and it's ice, so I got to wait at least overnight to get that thing. But I get that thing out so I can use it because you don't want to microwave it because if you microwave it, it will run the strip on the bag. Then you have to get a whole new card. So do you really want to take a chance of that? But that was then. So now, Amazon. you could get anything. You could get anything on Amazon nowadays. So
Nowadays, thanks to these, like my credit card is saved on my phone, and so I don't even
Exactly.
have to pull it out.
No.
I know the last three digits on the back of the card, and I just type it in, right? And so so again, you said something there. It makes you think, right? It makes you think,
makes you
do
think.
I really need this?
Exactly.
And so that's the mindset. And it's all about mindset. And there's a great book out there actually about mindset as well too. It's a great audio book too.
And we can always post that later if you want it.
Definitely.
You want to get it to me later.
Yeah, I'll get it to you later as well. And so it's a mindset, changing your mindset. Right? Changing your mindset to, okay, these are the things that I want. And what you start realizing is when you're willing to wait for it, it tastes so much better, right? When you're willing to wait for that steak, coming off the grill, you made it yourself. Oh,
Sure.
It just tastes delicious when you've done it yourself. And so if you're willing to wait, it's going to be so much better at the end of it as well. But do you really need it?
Yeah.
If you don't, then why are you getting it?
Exactly. That's that part that we have to take control of ourselves. Because if we can take control of ourselves, our needs, our wants, and everything, you're able to understand you communicate your finances, and it'll just all fall in place. Ever, I want to thank you so much for coming out. Thank you so much for. I don't have to pay you for this, do I?
No, of course not.
We're good.
Yeah, you can just pay me with a couple Bud Lights. Hey, that's fine.
Well, you got those. Hey, man, cheers up.
Hey, cheers. Thank you so much.
So cheers up for that. Yeah, there we go.
For having me as well too, and love to share any other information in the future.
Yeah.
I know we really just focused on new couples now, right? Being new to finance as well. So
and we'll get back. We'll have you back here in the studio at a later time. Maybe there's some other topics you want to touch base with. But I do want to say thank you so much for coming out. Everybody that tuned in, you are listening to Unscripted Mics. Make sure you share and like and put a thumbs up. Thanks a lot. Bye.